Welcome back aboard Blurred Force One with your boy Mo, and this is the Supercast. The Supercast, where we talk about all things superhero and our pop culture media. That's movies, TV shows, video games. We talk about the news, do some speculation, all that good nerdy stuff. And before we get into the podcast today, you know what to do. Get down there, hit like on this video. So, man, the summer has kicked off beautifully with Thunderbolts, or I guess it's New Avengers now. Came out about a week and a half ago, and it's doing pretty great critically and everything. We got some new information about Superman. We got some new information about Peacemaker Season 2. Marvel continues to not give a shit about Ironheart, even though that's coming out in about a month and a half. So, like, it's the superhero summer, and we are here for it. Today, I am flying solo. So it's just me and you and talking about all this superhero news and all that nerdy stuff, man. So I don't know what you guys have been up to that's nerdy, but I know what I have been. Been watching more anime. I've been continuing to watch, what's it called? From Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman on Prime Video. That's a fun little show. Low stakes, but very interesting. I've also been watching Ianu. Not been terribly pleased with that one. I think it's an R8 show, but not great. I've also I've been watching, of course. What's the other thing I've been watching? It's another anime I've been watching. Lazarus. Continue to watch that. So I'm quite behind though on a lot of the things like Last of Us Season 2. And so many other things I got to get to. So I'm trying to work my way up to that. Beyond that, of course, I'm always nerding on a budget. You know what I got to do? I got to show y'all the new finds I had in the last week. It's not that much. Other weeks I've had a lot more things. This week's it's a little more low key, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to show you some cool stuff. So in the physical media department, I got an X-Men comic. This is World War Wendigo. Craig Howe, I think it's Chris Yost on the writing. And hey, $3, not a bad thing. And also finding out my local thrift shop is about to have more comics, so I'm really looking forward to that. Also, I think Ross, I got a Supergirl. I really liked Supergirl. This was $5. I also got I think this was $8. This was just dope. I had to get this, a Notorious B.I.G. Funko Pop, so I'm really expanding my Funko Pop collection. I also got this from Amazon. This is MJ from Spider-Man No Way Home. That's really cool. I believe this was, I want to say this was $3 or $4, something like that. And then, I know not many people collect these, but I like them. This is the Lightyear Alpha Class. These are like the really nicer, action figures for the Lightyear movie. Not too many of them came out. I think something like 5 or 6 figures came out. This is a 2-pack with Buzz and with Alicia Hawthorne. And if you saw the movie, she's the grandmother of the Izzy Hawthorne that we see later in the movie. They didn't make too many of those, and now I almost have the complete set of that. I only need Buzz and socks, but unfortunately that's like $30-some bucks, so a bit too rich for my blood, but eventually I'm going to try to get the rest of that. So yeah, been nerding a bit on the budget. It's been really cool. So I love to always get a deal there. So of course this is the Supercast. We are going to talk about superhero news, superhero movie and media news. There's plenty going on, trust me. For instance, we're going to talk about, hey, all those behind the scenes, photos we saw for Avengers Doomsday. Don't believe the hype. Avengers Doomsday has just started filming, so once again, we got fooled. We also find out that there is some casting information or rumors for Will Poulter, who we just recently saw in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Who could he be playing? and in the DC universe. There's a rumor about who could be the next director for X-Men coming up in the MCU. Some updates on the Sergeant Rock movie. Jeremy Renner talks about Hawkeye season 2. Then Kevin Feige is, he's got some words to say about the current state of the MCU, and I don't think he sounds too happy about it. What is he trying to say about the MCU? And Marvel TV is set to have a much different outlook when it comes to its output in the coming years. We sort of saw this recently in like the last year with what Bob Iger's been talking about, but what are they really going to head towards? We'll see about that. Peacemaker season 2 gets a teaser trailer. We'll review that, and also it's us. We got to talk about Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts came out about 10 days ago, so there's a lot going on there. There's a post-credit scene. What was that all about? And you might be surprised the source of that post-credit scene. We also find out about what that asterisk really means in the title. Bob Iger also gives some kudos to Thunderbolts. Why would he do that? We'll see. And we'll also review the movie itself. It's going to be a good time. So, man, there's a lot to talk about. I know it's just me, but hey, watch me run my mouth for 45 minutes. We'll see. So let's go ahead and get into this. Y'all, this is just a really quick thing. Being a nerd on the internet that's interested in the upcoming, superhero movies and TV show is getting even harder. Like, it's hard enough because we have all these, dang toxic fans and the anti-woke brigade and everyone who just wants to piss in your cornflakes, if you will, if you're excited about anything. It's crazy, and I hate that. But now we got to add AI as a problem. We talked about this in the previous episode. Now we have to worry about AI giving us bullshit. And we don't know what to believe. So a month ago, I think, we sort of talked about, or it might even been 2 weeks ago, that we saw some behind the scenes footage of, Professor X and Wong and all this other stuff. And we also talked about in the same episode that AI is being a problem, that there's, some of these things, I think we saw a Doom armor with Robert Downey Jr. And this could be a problem. Well, we know it's a problem for sure now. All of those leaked images, are probably bullshit, more likely bullshit, because they just started filming Doomsday. Literally, not even a week ago. So all those images are bullshit. And it really kind of makes doing what I do now, and I love talking about this stuff. I love speculating. But it's kind of getting into the same lane as those those little trailer channels on YouTube that put out these fake ass AI, spliced together trailers of upcoming movies that have been actually announced. But they're nothing. They're not based on anything except some person or some AI or whatever putting some crap together. And my God, is that annoying. I hate those trailer channels so much. And just because I have to deal with people in real life who don't follow this stuff like me, having to shoot down what they say, and these people are going to sit there and fucking argue with me that no, the trailer, I saw it. No, the trailer is bullshit. And now we have to do this with pictures like this. It's really annoying, and I hate it. On the upside, Avengers Doomsday is now, it's now filming. So we're going to get actual behind the scenes stuff soon, I hope. I think I saw Anthony Mackie. He posted a little short on Instagram or something where he's somewhere where it was snowing. It was, I'm assuming he was down the street from wherever Superman fell into the snow. I don't know. Maybe. So we're going to get actual stuff like that. That's cool. Glad to see that. It's just now, they say caveat emptor. You got to, buyer beware on these things. You got to look at these things with 110 grains of salt. So, yeah, that sucks. But on to better news. Will Poulter, look, I know a lot of people didn't love him as, Adam Warlock. I mean, I didn't think he was a little dumber than I expected. Adam Warlock in the comics is he's a Jim Starlin sort of creation, and he does a lot of like real high prose and all that. So he sounds like he would have grown up on Asgard or something like that. In this one, he's kind of stupid. So he was basically sort of a Superman sort of character, but not really, not really very smart. He's like he's a kid. I get it. Not a people, some people liked him, some people didn't. But you can't deny that Will Poulter he's a good actor. He knows how to, he really knows how to portray a character, and he's an interesting, kind of talent. And he worked with James Gunn, so naturally you have to think who's he gonna be in the DCU. Like, if you know anything about James Gunn, and we talk about this on the show often because we do appreciate James Gunn quite a bit at Blurred Force One, he tends to have a lot of loyalty to people he's worked with before. If he has a good working relationship with you, you will show up again in something. See also Nathan Fillion literally in everything. And now he, of course, is Guy Gardner in the DCU. So if you get a good working relationship with James Gunn, you will get a call back to be in something else. And apparently he's eyeing Will Poulter for the role of Adam Strange in the DCU. I don't really know Adam Strange. Like, to be perfectly, I'm not as big on DC as I am on Marvel. Don't know as much about it. I'm aware of the character. I'm aware he's sort of a Silver Age sci-fi sort of character. I looked it up a little bit. He's a little bit like, what if, John Carter. It's a little bit of a John Carter situation. And sounds interesting, but also it tells me something about the way the DCU is going to be structured, which is they are absolutely leaning into the cosmic aspect of the DC universe. In Marvel, it took them a while to get to cosmic. It sounds like they're going straight to it. Obviously, they got Superman. You got Guy Gardner, so he's a Green Lantern. There's going to be a cosmic element. You have Hawkgirl, that's Thanagarian. So of course we're going to get that aspect of it. And it's interesting that because Adam Strange he's human, but he lived and operated on the planet Ran or Ron. I'm not sure how to say it. Which is, Ron and Thanagar traditionally they sometimes they fight, sometimes they're allies. So it's interesting they're building out the cosmic side of the DC universe, and they're doing it early. So clearly, James Gunn is going in for a straight up. The DC universe exists, heroes exist, aliens. People know about it. This is not a world where people are surprised that there are any of these things happening. This is a world where these things have been happening for potentially decades. So it is just a way of life, and that's a very different approach to a cinematic universe than we've seen before. Will Poulter as Adam Strange? Why not? I don't see why not. He would, he could put on his little, suit and have his little, 60s ray gun and jetpack and just do his thing. I'm down for it. I think he's a good actor, so why not? So we'll keep an eye on that. Let you guys know if there's any confirmation of that in the future. We also got a bit of a rumor. I guess is not really a rumor because Deadline's talking about it. So probably this is actually happening. And this does have something to do with what we're going to be talking about later. Because they are at Marvel, they are looking into bringing in the mutants. It's about time, I'll have to say. But my understanding is that Secret Wars is really the jumping off point to introduce mutants into the MCU, and I'm assuming that it's also being used as kind of a backdoor to put the universe back together. Mutants have always been here. We can start telling these stories. They can incorporate them without having to do a whole lot of explain. Well, I mean, literally, they're about to spend $500 million explaining why mutants and vampires and all sorts of other stuff that hasn't been in the MCU up to this point have always been in the MCU, and you just didn't know, didn't realize it. They don't want to have a whole, they don't want to have to go back and undo all the stuff they've already done. So that's what Doomsday and Secret Wars is going to be about. So with all that being said, who's going to be the director for the X-Men? That's the real question, and I think it's a important question to answer because X-Men need to be introduced, and they need to with a bang. They need to hit the way the Avengers hit, because in many ways they are more important than the Avengers. The Avengers honestly have only become as prominent as important in the cultural zeitgeist because of the MCU. To be perfectly honest, the X-Men were way more well known than the Avengers ever have been in up until probably 2012 when the Avengers movie hit. Before that, no, it was all X-Men because of the X-Men animated series and because of the movies. So people knew about them a lot more. The X-Men were a really big part of what little bit of nerd culture bled into the real culture, the mainstream culture in the 90s and the 2000s. So now it's important that you hit hard with the X-Men movie. So that means that whoever's writing is, extremely important. But who's directing? Who can direct a movie about a group, a diverse group of people with superpowers? Some of them, they don't necessarily get along. The world doesn't like them. The world is actively against them. And somehow still they're going to pull together and become heroes in spite of all that. Who could possibly do that? Light bulb moment. Jake Schreier, who just, he just finished directing and successfully, I'd say, directing Thunderbolts. He is apparently in talks. So there's some, they're in talks to try to get him to be the director of the X-Men movie. And I have to say, this makes all the fucking sense in the world. It makes all this. First of all, if you've seen Thunderbolts, you know what I'm talking about. But even if you haven't seen Thunderbolts, at least you see that the Rotten Tomatoes and the cinema scores are good. There's good word of mouth. This guy clearly knows what he's doing. If you check out that trailer, but it's a group of people coming together. They're not all necessarily well loved or anything, or even well known, and they have to work together to become a team of heroes. And I think he's got all of the tools in his tool belt to tell the story. And in fact, I would even say he's got more than most, because he does come from indie movies and everything, but he's got a certain eye and he's got an understanding of superhero dynamics that was really well put on display in Thunderbolts. So I think this is awesome. Like, seriously, give this guy, if he wants more work, give him more work. If he wants to stay playing in this sandbox, the man just made an amazing sandcastle. Why not? Why not let him make another one? It's a pretty good idea. And also, he knows how to work in the Marvel system. He's got a good rapport with Feige. He's got a good rapport with the producers over there. I think that this is a great idea, and I want to see more. They need to do like the Russos. The Russos are the same way. They were in the ecosystem. They knew how to work around, and they put something good out. So, like, give him more if he wants to do more. I can't wait to see if this is true or not. I hope it is, and we'll see. I'll let you guys know about it when I find out more. We do have a bit of unfortunate news, and I don't know how many people are going to think this is unfortunate, because I don't know how many people really were looking forward to this. DC Studios was apparently, and they were this close to starting production on this movie, but it has been shelved, I think maybe for the time being, or possibly canceled just completely. And that is the Sergeant Rock movie. We did talk about this maybe a month or two, probably 2 months ago, I think. Where at the time it was Daniel Craig was rumored to be attached to it, but now it looks like that's nothing. We knew that he wasn't attached to it, but they were still going to go forward with the movie. But apparently scheduling is what got in the way. They were supposed to be filming during the summer in London. It was going to be it's very important that they shoot in London during the summer because of certain scenes that will require it will require a certain weather basically, and by the time they would actually be able to shoot again, probably the weather wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't match up with what they were trying to do in the movie. So it's being reported that it's going to be, either pushed back to next year or possibly, gone all the way, which is really unfortunate because Luca Guadagnino is a really talented director, has done some really cool things. Apparently was quite interested in doing this little period piece. And also, I think it's a nice way of fleshing out the DC universe or parts of the DC universe that probably won't get a lot of play because of all the capes and everything going on. The Marvel and DC, they are both have parts of their universe that are very grounded. That are just about people in this universe, right? And Sergeant Rock was going to be one of those things, and it could potentially, have eventually turned up with Sergeant Rock going from World War II being transported to the future. Any kind of weird stuff could have happened at the end, but it would have been something like Captain America, the first Avenger, that part prior, to him being frozen in ice and brought to the future. It's unfortunate. It would have been interesting, and I have to be honest. The way Hollywood is moving right now, and they're tightening the purse strings, and all the political and economic shit is going on with it. Eesh. I mean, is this going to happen? I don't think so. It feels unlikely. It feels like something that's not gonna come to fruition. But we will see. I'm hoping that they will just take a pause, come back next year, get to work on it, because I doubt Sergeant Rock is going to be essential to the way the larger DCU story is unfolding. But it is nice to have these smaller movies that do flesh out the DCU. We'll see. Let you guys know all about that. I forgot to put this on the news, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway, just because it's so fucking stupid, and it does have an effect on superhero movies, and that is, and it's not official. I get it. It's just this. The thing about living in America now is that we have a president that says shit, and it may or may not be official policy. He may just be saying some shit. Or it may be actually something that's just about to happen. When if he says I'm going to tariff something, it could be real, it could not be real. Well, one thing he's talking about is implementing 100% tariff, 100% tariff on movies that are produced in other countries besides the United States and then brought to America for distribution to be shown in theaters, or even to be put onto the streaming services. That's what it would essentially constitute. And I just don't know how many ways to say how fucking dumb this is. I get it. The American film industry has, taken a bit of a beating in terms of like the local creation of film. And I don't mean like, American directors and artists and what. No, they're all working. But what's happening is a lot of shit is not happening in the United States because of the cost of production. So they're going to Canada. Like Canada it's been the go-to for basically most, syndicated TV. Most television shows that have a certain budget, they go up to Canada because it looks like America. It looks like the United States of America. And they can just pass it off as, some random ass place in the United States. So that was, the CW was big for that. Most of the CW superhero shit was filmed in Toronto or Vancouver. And that's, Canada, they've done that because they just had a lower cost for filming. They did tax incentives and all that other stuff. And you see that similar things happen around the world where places are placing tax incentives uh, for you to come over there and film, or they build the infrastructure. London is known for this. Leviston Studios has been doing this for decades upon decades. People have been going over there. Marvel does this. They film a decent amount of their stuff in London. They've Marvel and DC, they go on location as needed, but for the most part they don't do that. They go to the places like like I said, London. They go to Vancouver. They go to Toronto, and they're starting to go to other parts of the world as needed. Um, and in some ways it's kind of makes sense. Like if you're making a movie that's in Malaysia, you may just go to Malaysia to shoot it. If it's centered there. If you're making something that's like Thunderbolts just did that. If you're making something that's in China, probably some incentive to be in China to do it. Just because locally they'll give you tax incentives to film there. Well, the idea here is to bring. It's just like all of the other tariffs. It's a stupid way to do it, but let's bring back production to the United States to make it more expensive to make things elsewhere. So you'll just stay here and do it. And this is going to be coupled with the fact that there are, some states are really pushing to bring film production into, like state of Georgia. Marvel films a ton of their stuff. They have been for the better part of the last 10, 12 years, have been filming in Atlanta or in the Atlanta area, as that the infrastructure for filming has grown in Atlanta and in the suburbs of Atlanta. Other states, are getting on the same train. They're giving tax incentives to bring production into their state, which is, I mean, cool. That's all fine. It's you give tax incentives to encourage people to come here, come to your state and invest money in the local economy because people got to be fed. There's so much stuff that's going on into making a movie. I get it. This tariff thing is not it. It isn't. If you want America to be cost effective or cost competitive at producing film or TV, you got to do what the states are doing. They're just like, oh, okay, here's some money. Because what this really is doing, if you're going to put 100% tax on every movie that's produced overseas, you're essentially telling all of the film studios and the TV studios, I'm taxing you twice. I'm making your things twice as expensive unless you stay here. Okay, if you stay here, now you got to find some place to actually film it to still make it cost effective. And also this means that any foreign films, and we get them, British films, French films, Asian films, every one of them is going to cost twice what they would normally cost to get in here to distribute, which means we're going to pay for it. So tariffs the consumer always pays for it. This is not. I don't think this is good. Protectionism rarely is that good for the industry as a whole. And I'm not even against necessarily bringing production back to the United States. The reason why the cost is less than some of these other places is just because, some cases it's because just the cost of living or the cost of materials, everything is cheaper there because of where it is. Sometimes it really is just because the local municipality says, hey, we'll just give you some money, and that'll make it cheaper to make it make sense to bring. And plus we have the infrastructure. We can just do that here instead of doing this tariff shit. Just go, if California is too expensive to shoot movies in, and I understand why. It's like, New York is too expensive to shoot movies in. I understand why. The cost of living is extremely high there. So, all right, tax incentives. That's what y'all are doing right now, and it works. Why are you adding tariffs on that? I believe this is punitive. It isn't just about, bringing jobs back. I don't think that that's true. I think this is about punishing Hollywood in particular because conservatives really believe that Hollywood is everybody's liberal and everybody is run by liberals. It's not. It isn't. The executives, the guys that wearing the suits that sign checks, they're not. They're Trump supporters. But this is just punishing liberal Hollywood and by making things more difficult and more expensive and everything like that. But it's silly. It's not gonna. I don't think the tariffs are gonna make. It's not gonna make the film industry better. Not that I can see. Somebody explained it to me like I'm stupid, but I don't think it's gonna make things better. I think the tax incentive is the better way to go. It's about competitiveness. If you want them to leave Leviston Studios in the UK and come to LA instead, make it worth the while of the studio because the studio execs don't give a shit about anything except the bottom line and the cost of things. And if you can make it cheaper for them, they will stay. It's very simple, but you're not making it cheaper. You're making it more expensive. You're saying you have to stay or I'll make it more expensive for you. And it's crazy. There are better ways to do this. And, who knows? It's not even official. Trump was just running his fucking mouth. But he does have some people whispering in his ear that may be telling him that this makes sense. I don't think so. We'll see. Keep an eye on that. Let you guys know whenever any of that stuff comes to pass. So back to let's get back on schedule. Back to what we were talking about originally. So, Jeremy Renner, our good friend Jeremy Renner, we love him. Hawkeye. He's mayor of Kingstown. He's been in the game for a while. And there was that big scare with that whole snowmobile almost died. Like it was so serious, they showed him, learning to walk and all the other stuff again. He's getting back in the game. Really happy to see that. Love to see that actually. But he was on a podcast just talking to people and they asked him, what's up with Hawkeye season 2? Which is a question I've asked constantly since Hawkeye came out. What is up with season 2? When are we going to see more? Haley Steinfeld wants to do it. I think Florence Pugh wants to do it. And apparently Jeremy Renner wanted to do it. But it's not happening, at least not with him. Because these motherfuckers at Disney lowballed him. Now, look, first of all, how dare you? I'm going to be mad for him. I'm going to be mad for him. This man is an OG Avenger. Right? Think of everybody that's in the Avengers. Every single person that's in the Avengers that was a part of the OG crew. Out of all of them, the ones that are most disrespected in my eyes, as far as money is concerned, probably Jeremy Renner and Mark Ruffalo, right? But Ruffalo shows up, when they ask him to, because he'll never get an actual movie because of the rights situation. And they made a Hawkeye thing for Renner after Endgame was over. Very cool of them. But they were talking about doing season 2 and they wanted him to take a half as much pay as the first time. In what world is that justified? I don't give a fuck what y'all say about what's going on Disney Plus. They ain't got nothing to do with him. Disney telling Marvel to make a shit ton of things and it diluting the brand. He ain't had nothing to do with that. So you're going to disrespect this man by saying, well, you got to take a pay cut. No, he said no. And I'm like, fuck yeah, say no. I want Hawkeye season 2, but I'm perfectly fine with not getting it if they're going to be on this bullshit. It is unreasonable. Like this man, look, let me just say, Jeremy Renner he's not starving. And he doesn't have his hat in his hand begging for a fuck thing. He does not need Marvel. Trust me when I say that. He's got a hit show on Paramount Plus. People really like it. If he wants to be in a movie, he'll probably be in a movie, right? This guy is not hurting for anything. And so fuck yeah, know your worth. He knows his worth. I was an Avenger, goddammit. Y'all had my fucking signature at the end of Endgame. Thanking me for everything. You know what I'm saying? Oh, okay, I'm not RDJ, I'm not fucking Chris Evans or whatever, but y'all are sure as shit not gonna play me like a fool. So I'm like, as usual, we don't get shit we want because some fucking exec he even says it. He's like, it's not Marvel Studios, it's the fucking the number crunchers. It's them people. As usual, we don't get shit we want because of the fucking people that are not in the creative pipeline at all. These people they hold the purse strings and they really think they can just talk to anybody like anything. Okay, well, Jeremy Renner's like, I don't need this. I'm good. I damn near died. Do you think I'm gonna bust my ass to get back in shape and get ready for this thing again just so you can, give me half of what I you couldn't even come back and say, give me, we're just going to pay you the exact same. He was cool with that if you said the exact same thing. Nope, half. Get out of here. Yeah, it's that Hollywood bullshit. That's what it is. Like, how dare you? How dare you treat, a legend, a Marvel legend like that? That's crazy. Marvel, do better. I say that too many times. Y'all need to do better. Kevin Feige, you got the power to make this happen. Go and slap these number counters around and be like, we making this. Don't even think about it. But I know Bob Iger is on your ass about how much you're making, so I get it. But anyway, good job, Jeremy Renner. Stand on business because that is not cool at all. Speaking of Feige, let's talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Every, People be like, "We're back, y'all," because of Thunderbolts. They say that every now and then. Look, it's not as big as it was during Phase 3. We know that. I don't know why people think it all. I would say the MCU right now is as big as it was in Phase 2 of the MCU. And that's where it is right now. People forget that Phase 2 was cool and people were getting hyped, but they wasn't exactly like burning out. It literally took till Phase 2 before we finally got I think we got $1 billion movie with the Avengers, but we finally got $1 billion movie in that wasn't an Avengers movie in a Phase 2. That was Iron Man 3. So like look, and we got $1 billion. I think we got in Phase 4 and 5, we got $1 billion movie respectively in each of those. So look, the MCU's fine. Is it barn burner amazing? No, it's not, and it's okay. But it's making its money, and some things don't hit quite right. Some things do. But there's a feeling over at Marvel Studios that the reason why this is because Bob Chapek, the previous CEO, really, really, really was pushing content coming from the big franchises, and particularly Marvel, so that they could fill out space in Disney Plus. And so, because of that, and a lot of people felt that the initially really strong, but as time went on, more and more stuff diluting the brand, less quality stuff, more just kind of feels rushed out, feels not as strong, not as tight. And as they did that over the course of years, now we are where we are with the Marvel Studios. It's a bit under pressure about every movie that comes out. So Kevin Feige, look, it's reported that he's been telling the people at Marvel Studios like every new MCU thing feels like it's homework rather than entertainment that you have to know a lot going in. And this whole, supposed Marvel fatigue is, they feel like it is a result of what they say they've created a no new fans club, which is to say you can't just drop into the MCU, any random MCU movie, and just get into it and then keep going and not have to know previous things. Well, yeah. I mean, this was true in Phase 2. I'm I agree with what you're saying. I agree. It can be quite confusing to new people just jumping into the deep end that They don't know what's going on, who's what's going. They just got to kind of go with what they're watching. But again, it's been true since Phase 2. I mean, pretty much. I mean, you could watch Avengers and just kind of like, not have watched the previous one and sort of get it. But this has been real since Phase 2. That people have been starting to watch the movie and like, who is this? What is this? Why are they doing this? And it's all, as time goes on, it only gets worse. This is the comic book problem. This is ultimately the problem of having a shared universe that has storylines that carry through, an entire set of movies. Yeah, it's gonna be, if you watch movie 32, you're not gonna know some shit. You are, and every movie can't sit there and spend 20 minutes explaining to you the shit you missed because you didn't watch the other movies. Similarly, like comic books, they can't spend 4 or 5 pages telling you everything you missed on because this is the first time you picked up a fucking comic book. It's unfortunate, but that is what y'all signed up for. That's what the shared cinematic universe always entailed. And the problem isn't that's what's happening. The problem is that some of the movies, like, recently, have not drawn in people so that they can stay up to date with what's happening. Or they don't necessarily want to. And I also think this is a result of not doing the actual comic book thing, which is sectioning off the cinematic universe into smaller parts where things are happening. They sort of did that with like multiverse, WandaVision, Multiverse of Madness, that sort of thing. They sort of did that. But there needs to be a smaller sections. Like right now we got Daredevil Born Again that just finished its first season. This is an opportunity to, get a big rope and rope off, the street level, and have Spider-Man be the most, out there person in the street level. Just street level. That's all. And they're doing their own thing, so people don't have to feel like they gotta see what the fuck's going on with the Avengers or the Eternals or whatever. They can just focus on this part. And the cosmic side can have its thing, and then the Avengers, and of course, ultimately the X-Men and the Fantastic. You know what I'm saying? They have their own little sections. They will come together at some point, but you don't have to necessarily follow all of them to keep up with the storylines of the characters you care about. I get it. It is homework. I kind of want to tell fans to suck it up, because what do you expect? Like, you can't ask for a shared cinematic universe and then complain that you got to keep up with all the shit going on in the shared cinematic universe. If you drop in on a fucking soap opera, don't sit there and complain. If you drop in on the latest episode of the soap opera you haven't watched in 5 years, don't complain about not knowing the shit that happened in the last 5 years and why you don't understand what's going on in the current storyline. Of course you don't understand. You haven't been watching the show. Go back and watch. I hate calling it homework is weird. It's not homework. Either you want to be entertained by these superhero things or you don't. If you want to just be a casual fan, okay, well then you're going to get the casual fan treatment in the movies, which is they're not going to fucking hold your hand because you decide to skip out on half of the damn things that led up to this point. I mean, you jump into season 7, episode 3 of The Sopranos, and you wonder who the fuck all the people are. That's on you. They're telling a story. They can't spend every episode turning around and telling you shit you missed from 3 years ago. So I get it, and it's true, but it comes with the territory of a shared cinematic universe. That is just true. And if the new viewers having no clue what's going on, you have access to Disney Plus, right? You can go watch the movies. Once you finish this movie and you're like, man, I don't know what was happening. Go read. Literally, Wikipedia exists. If you want to know, if you want to get clued in on what's going on, that's just wild to me. I thought that's what we wanted. I thought that was the whole point of the shared cinematic universe. I thought we saw that this was where it was heading in the future. Every comic book fan that ever looked at an MCU movie knew this is where the moment we were heading to, where you got to go, you need to watch several things so you'll know who all these characters are. Thunderbolts is the same way. There are several things. If you watch, you won't know who any of these people are unless you watch certain things. You can still watch the movie, get to the end of it, be like, cool. But you'll have a deeper understanding if you actually go back and do the homework. The fuck is wrong with homework? I get it. Like, I get that you're trying to be entertained. You're not too invested in being entertained. If you go into an MCU movie knowing it's a shared universe with tons of shit that's going on, and you're being willfully ignorant, that's on you. Anyway, I get it, but like I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's a problem that can be solved uh, easily. Besides rebooting the things and starting all over from scratch, and then nobody knows anything. But short of doing that, you just have to encourage people to get the fuck on Disney Plus and watch some shit so that they'll be up to date. There you go. That's what happened when I was a comic book fan and I started reading comics. And if we treat people the same way, they'll just get with the program. But you got to have movies that are coming out that are so great that people feel compelled to go back and do that. That's really what the takeaway should be. Staying on with Marvel Studios, they have decided, I believe this is a Bob Iger thing, more quantity, less quantity, more quality. That's the deal, right? And you even have Iger. He was, touting Thunderbolts as, their new focus on, quality over quantity. And which, I mean, it is a good movie. So, like, I get that. But he's also talking about, like, reducing the amount of output for Marvel TV to the point of they literally saying 1 or 2 live action series per year. I hope that also means that they're going to double down on animation. That would be cool. Because if we can't have, big names in live action, can we at least have, smaller names in animation? So it's a lot less expensive, but we still get cool stories. Um, but yeah, 1 or 2 live action shows per year. And I get it because streaming don't make no money. It's just true. Where's the revenue source? Movies make money. Where's the revenue source for streaming shows? If there's not really a revenue source besides like a little bit of ads, it doesn't make any sense to invest, like they were doing early on in Disney Plus. It doesn't make any sense to invest like movie money into a TV series that's not going to see a return on investment in terms of advertising or anything. So I get it. 1 or 2 things and they've already greenlit, multiple seasons for something. We already see that with Daredevil Born Again. Not really sure what the other ones would be, but I'm really interested to see how this works. I don't mind this too much. The years, the years where we were eating good and having so much Disney Plus TV, not all of it was amazing. It was, I enjoyed pretty much all of it except Secret Invasion. But the problem that I think they ran into, besides diluting the brand and having people just be like, what does this have to do with anything? Is also because they weren't talking to each other. So you had things happening in one show that didn't necessarily, play out or have an effect on another show with the same characters, or, downstream effects weren't real. And so because of that, the TV shows, people are like, why should I watch these? And plus the other thing is, if you're talking about this is too much homework, literally fewer people are going to watch the TV shows. They just are. The movies are an event. It could be a zeitgeist moment. The TV show, not so much. So even something as well regarded as Daredevil Born Again doesn't necessarily get the eyes on it like even the Captain America Brave New World did. It does kind of change priorities. Even with ad supported streaming, still not enough to make to recoup $100 million production. So it does make sense to me that they will dial that back. Um, that being said, I want as much MCU shit as I can, so I don't love this. I don't love that, but you know, it is what it is. They are really trying to cut the fat at Disney. So this is definitely one of the things that makes sense to me that they would cut back on. So let's move on to the Peacemaker season 2 trailer, the teaser trailer that just dropped. James Gunn promised it. It just dropped today. I watched it. I reacted to it. You can check out the reaction on the channel right now. But I will just do a quick I don't want to say review, just kind of a quick thoughts on it. I think it's great. I think it's a great trailer. Peacemaker season 1 is so good, and it's so much better than it had any right to be. But of course, in James Gunn we trust. I should have known after seeing The Suicide Squad and loving that movie. I should have known he was going to bring the heat with season 1. He made me love a character that I hated at the end of The Suicide Squad. Brought in a whole cast of characters. Didn't know them. Now I know them. I really like them. I think they're really cool. Had some fun stuff happening. And it's a more grounded show. And John Cena is just really kind of amazing. Loved it. Loved the first season. And also that iconic, opening credit sequence that you can't skip. Great. Love that. So much good's out of this. One of the best things that came out of the DCEU. And James Gunn took over with Peter Safran, took over DC Studios, rebooting the DC universe. But he was like, oh, we keeping this. Which makes sense because Peacemaker really, to be honest, the first Peacemaker definitely took place in a world where superheroes were already a thing. So it's really cool to see him, see him bring them over. We're going to get more of them. Looks like it's more of the same, more of the kind of raunchy humor, a lot of heart. The found family aspect is a ever-present thing in James Gunn's his repertoire, and having them, they save the world. They're still not they're not living it up. They don't have any respect. So now of course we have the DCU proper coming in because we see Hawkgirl and we see Guy Gardner, we see Maxwell Lord. Very, very cool to see that happening, the integration. I'm definitely just glad to see all of the characters back and up to some shenanigans. It looks like there's going to be some mind, mental stuff going on, or somebody with the power to like mess around with people's minds. That's interesting. And just a lot of like ass kicking and, blood and shooting and Eagly being a nut. Love it all. I think it looks really cool. August, it's coming out. I can't wait. So we get Superman, then we get Peacemaker like right on his heels. That's dope. Can't wait. So let's talk about Thunderbolts, which, by the way, Thunderbolts it's doing quite well. I'm not sure what the box office is, but it had a pretty good opening. Let me see what's the box office for Thunderbolts. So as of today, it's sitting at 177 million worldwide. Does that include? No, it doesn't include. So that doesn't include its second weekend, obviously. But we'll see if it's second weekend. So I believe it had a budget. I want to say it had 100, maybe 120. I'm not sure. Budget. Doing really well. Cinema score. It's got an A cinema score. Rotten Tomatoes, I think it was 90 something, 80 something, 85, 89, 90 something, 91, something like that. A very good Rotten Tomato. So generally well received by the critics, well received by the audience. Facing, a very soft, cinema or movie market right now. But being in the theater at the same time as people are seeing Sinners, and that Sinners is bringing people to the theater some more. So it's doing well enough. Is it gonna like do gangbusters? I like at this point, I think it clears 450. Not sure if it does better than that, which is unfortunate because the movie actually deserves to be. It deserves to make at least Ant-Man money. At $600 million. I don't know if it'll do that. It may be a little too heavy for for like mass audiences, even though it's a PG-13 movie. So that's all cool. It's doing its thing. If you watch the movie, um, you will notice that you'll get two things out of it. One of them is that, and it's been out a week and a half, so I don't care if this is a spoiler. Go watch the fucking movie. If you're watching this podcast, you should have seen the movie by now. So one thing is that there's a post-credit scene. I'm not gonna say what happens in it, but it's quite consequential. It is quite literally leading into, or at least pointing to, the next movie, which is of course Fantastic Four coming out in July. But also, it is very explicitly pointing to, I think, Doomsday and Secret Wars. It was all very cool. I liked. It's one of actually could be one of the better post credit scenes recently, and definitely maybe in the past few phases of the MCU. But it was not filmed by Jake Schreier. It was actually filmed by the Russos while on the set of Doomsday. Very interesting to know. Also, I get it because it did seem like it was a bit out of. It did seem like it was a bit out of the way. Not quite the same style. You'll know when you see the movie. You'll see what I'm talking about. Not quite the same. So interesting to see that was what happened there. But this is not unknown. This has actually happened. Happens in the MCU more than you think. You get either a post-credit scene that's filmed by somebody else, or it's a scene from another movie that's being used to tease something. So not surprised by that, but very interesting. And like I said, I like that post-credit. Also, we found out again. This is a spoiler, but you know what? Watch the fucking movie, man. Like it's been a week. Go see it. Uh, so we found out also that what that asterisk stands for. It's the new Avengers. So they actually have changed the logo of this. This even happened in the comics. The new Thunderbolts comic was going to come out. They call it the new Avengers now. But this is being called the new Avengers. And if you watch the movie, you'll see why that matters. Why it happened. I thought that was cool. They had a little thing showing, all of them revealing the actual new title. Very cool. And also, it introduced some interesting dynamics within the MCU about who's the real Avengers, which does echo a little bit some of what happened in the comics. Very cool. So, with all that being said, we talked about that's just like leading up to it. We got to talk about Thunderbolts itself. If you have not noticed, I like the movie. Actually, I think the movie's great. I'm just not gonna bury the lead. I think it's great. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time spoiling it or anything. I just think my God, it's a good movie. It's a good, like I think I said on Threads, and I think this is true. It does the Guardians of the Galaxy formula and does it very well. And this is not a strike against it. Found family, putting a bunch of low lives together and making them into a ragtag team you can cheer for. That is that's a time honored tradition, and if you can pull it off, dope. You're gonna have a great movie. It also helps that I have already affinity for most of the characters, except John Walker, because fuck that guy. But even John Walker kind of gets his moment in the sun in this movie. You learn quite a bit about them. Like this movie is, a movie is an interesting one in that the villain is not the villain. Is that? I think it's fair to say. It's a situation where someone's mess has to be cleaned up, I guess you could say. But that mess turns out to be something really huge and terrible. And the only people that are available to actually solve the problem are these group of basically mercenaries, assassins who are all, dealing with trauma or just terrible things that have happened or in their lives, and no direction, feeling no, self-worth, all of that stuff. I've heard a lot of people talk about the mental health aspect of this, and I see it. It's true. Bob, the character Bob, is literally mentally ill, like, and to the point of having essentially a, multiple personality situation. But you got Yelena, who's the main character essentially of the movie, at least the main POV character, and she's just going through the motions. She's not loving life. It's all just like, what's this all for? And to see her kind of turn around, and I think the point of seeing someone else who's hurting also gets her out of her own head, so that she has to, instead of focusing on all the things that she thinks is wrong about her life, she is focusing on someone else in their situation and trying to be there for them. Very good. In fact, I'll say I loved Florence Pugh in this. I think she was awesome. I loved Lewis Pullman in this as Bob, and I loved their chemistry on screen as they're friends. Yelena Belova in the MCU is essentially asexual, like asexual, aromantic, right? But she does value friendships and family. She misses Alexei. Alexei is like not living his best life, but he's trying to put on a brave face for it. She misses him. She's feeling untethered, and then Bob comes around and she has to, help. She has to be there. She has to listen. She has to get out of her own head. So we also have, Taskmaster. We got Ghost returning from Ant-Man and the Wasp. John Walker, of course, and then Bucky Barnes, which is, let me just say, when Bucky Barnes is the most mentally stable person in your group, y'all messed up. I'm just going to say this. And I understand he got deprogrammed by the Wakandans and everything. In this, he is now he's one of Brooklyn's representatives to the U.S. House of Representatives. Oh, okay. And he ultimately breaks out his arm and goes to deal with this whole situation. But he's the most mentally stable person there. That's something. Everybody else to some degree or another is just having problems. Some of them, they're killers and they don't want to be killers. Some of them, like John Walker, is still just reeling from the fact that he fucked up his shot and just really made everybody turn against him. Taskmaster, she was a red room assassin. Now she's still doing the assassinating. So, Ghost, what is she doing? What's she been doing since Ant-Man and the Wasp? All this stuff has been going on, and they essentially get thrown at each other by Valentina. What's her name? Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Very well, by the way. Extremely well, actually. To the point where I realized after watching the movie, I was like, oh, this is the Maria Hill from the comics. So if you know the comics and you know the time and place, like, this movie is essentially Dark Avengers, like from the comics from about 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. So if you read those comics, you would recognize this Maria Hill. This Maria Hill is an asshole. This Maria Hill is like, what if Nick Fury, but like a little more, shady, which is hard to be shadier than Nick Fury, but a little more shady and a hell of a lot less respectful to the superheroes. So she's playing, she's playing Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who in the comics would be Madam Hydra, but here she is a CIA. She runs the CIA, and she is trying to bury some illicit, research that will get her fired and potentially put into prison. And she's got all these people, she's got all these resources to try to contain it. And she sends the Thunderbolts. They're not the Thunderbolts yet, but she sends them at each other to get rid of them because they are part of the evidence. But in the course of that, they band together and essentially try to, get away so that she can't kill them. And they discover that Bob is more than he, seems to be. And if you know the comics, you know who the fuck he is. And now she wants Bob, and Bob is not a mentally stable person, and apparently he's got some powers, and there's a lot of reflection on everyone's mental states and what they've gone through. A lot of bickering, a lot of funny stuff. I loved the scene where they were just roasting John Walker, but reluctantly and against all odds, they forged themselves into a team that cares. And then, they run up against the problem because they're mostly just super soldiers and one person that has an interesting power. But so they, they get Alexei because, but everyone's basically a super soldier or an assassin or something. They have no real powers, and they have to save New York from the terrible consequences of Bob's, empowerment. And it's a really it's like, for all of this, it's not a thing that has, it's got major implications, but it's not like the whole world's going to die if we don't fix this. It's not that. And yet it's a big enough thing that they need the Avengers, and they don't have the Avengers. They got these guys. And somehow it works. It works. I think this movie's awesome. I think this movie is worth seeing more than one time. I think this movie elevates some characters that people may have sort of seen, like you saw it in the Ant-Man movie or whatever. John Walker has never been in a movie. I think Wyatt Russell does a great job portraying him. There's just so many good performances, so much fun in this. There's some real emotional scenes. There's a scene that you saw it in the trailer between Alexei and Yelena. So good. I love David Harbour and Florence Pugh being able to play off of each other. So good. I can't recommend this movie enough. I'm not saying Marvel is back. I've loved some movies. I think I've liked Spider-Man Far From Home better than this, but for nostalgia reasons. I like some things equally, but I think that this is a great entry. This is definitely a great entry to the MCU. Totally worth your time. And I'm so looking forward to what the MCU is going to be doing from this point. I want these characters. They're all going to show up in Doomsday, to my understanding. Happy to see that. Love to see that. Cannot wait, even if it's for a short amount of time. So anyway, I'm not going to ramble on too much more about that. What did you guys think about this movie? Let me know. What do you think? And that's all I got to talk about today. I know, again, it's me by myself, but I'm sure I missed something because lots of things are happening in the world. Or, you just want to agree, disagree, say something nice, whatever the case may be, you know what to do. Get down there to the comment section and leave your thoughts. And of course, you can always hit me up, supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com, blurred_force1 on Instagram and Threads, super_not_funny_show on TikTok. And while you're doing that, do me a favor, get down there, hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. All that good stuff helps to grow this channel, help more people to see this podcast and all of the other content that we make on Blurred Force 1. All right, everyone, thanks for joining me on this episode. It's episode 179 of the Supercast. Come back next week, and we're going to be talking about plenty of more things that are coming down the pike. Until then, I've been Mo, your comment extraordinaire on all things pop culture, and I'll see you guys on the other side of the thread. Peace.